committee of whole meeting on Monday, July 27th. And I'm going to just do a quick roll call of the council members. We have regrets tonight from CAO Morris and Deputy Clerk Bennett, who are on vacation. Mayor Panko.
Here.
Mayor Panko here. Councillor Alford.
Present.
Councillor Brennan. And Councillor Dwyer. Councillor Dwyer will be joining us shortly. Councillor McGuire.
Present.
And Councillor McKenna.
Here.
And Acting CAO Director Costello is with us this evening. And did you want to highlight who's with you?
Certainly. Certainly. We have Director of Community Services, Art Manhire, Director of Works Utilities, Troy Dunlop, Fire Chief Rick Cheeseborough, Treasurer Janet Koziel, Manager of Economic Development Jennifer Miller, and myself, Carrie Costello.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to our agenda? Okay. Are there any disclosure?
Yes. Councillor Allen.
Mayor Panko, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to defer item 8D, Rideau Community Health Services Community Grant Request.
All right, so everyone just take that off their list, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all. Are there any disclosure of monetary interest? No. There are no delegations and no adoption of minutes this evening. So we will go right to CAO and Director's reports. And we'll start with Director Manhire, if that's okay with him.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll go without video as my internet doesn't seem to be cooperating very well today.
Okay, thank you.
A few updates from Community Services. The Murphy Park washrooms were open this past weekend, so they'll be open from 11 until 7 p.m. To accommodate people using the waterfront area. Also to help with Parks Canada, who's saying that there's an awful lot of traffic down there, so they have washrooms at the Parks Canada building as well. The childcare, as of today, we have increased childcare capacities. So we're still working with that we can go up to cohorts of 13 at this point from 8. So it's an additional 5 in each group. Registration has been slower than anticipated at this point. And the feedback we're getting from people is that people are still working from home, but we expect that to fill up as announcements are made for return to school and other things that will allow people to get back into the groove. The town hall project, we're looking at occupancy, anticipated occupancy is for Friday. So there's some millwork going in now and some cleanup happening. We're getting furniture and pieces organized so that we can get staff in there. So we anticipate that staff will start setting up on Tuesday of next week. And that in the short period after that, we will be looking at opening as a service center. And the emergency control group is working on that plan. We have the Parks and Rec staff have worked on and sent protocols out to user groups for the arena operations. We do have confirmation from public health that we can run in 3 different cohorts in the arena. So that's 3 different groups of 50 people maximum. And that would be on the track or in the meeting room, on the ice or in the stands. So we've developed a plan that allows us to do that. We sent that out to our user groups and we are now taking registration. So if people are looking to register, they should get in touch with with Tana Torch at the Parks and Rec Department. And we also are helping people trying to identify how they can comply under the new guidelines from the province. So if people are having some questions around how to do that, they can get in touch with the Parks and Recreation Department as well, and we can help them through that process. We do ask, we've had a couple of incidents along the waterfront, and we're asking people to kind of respect the wildlife and treat it with the respect due. Staff did remove a fish hook from one of our swans. that got a fish hook in the wing and was kind of wrapped in fishing line. That's generally an indication that somebody cast towards the birds, and we would really ask that people give the wildlife down there a good wide berth, just to respect its space. We did receive our tender back for the basketball courts, which closed last week. We had one bid come back. There was a mandatory site visit and only one company attended. The bid was more than twice what we anticipated. So we're currently looking at other ways to proceed with that project. And there are a couple of different ways that we've identified where we could kind of recapture that. Movies Under the Stars, Heritage House has been running that for the last year or so, and they are looking at setting up a couple of dates for August. We're still going to be in the same location, and we are looking for volunteers if anybody is interested in helping that delivery. We'll have dates within the next week or so. But that's all. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Chief Cheeseborough. Oh, sorry, did you have a question, Councillor Brennan? Go ahead. Comment or question for
Yeah,
Dr.
just a couple, just to clarify. Thanks for that report. On the arena, just to be clear, the walking track remains closed.
Yes, Madam Chair, it will remain closed until we can get all of the signage and barriers in place. The three cohorts that we have to actually set up entries, washrooms, exit points that do not cross over, and those groups cannot mix. So we've gone through the facility and we've identified those. Staff are currently setting up rope and stanchion and some barricades and signage so that we can direct people through those areas. And as soon as we have that available, we'll let the public know and open the doors.
Okay, thanks for that. And through the chair, just one more thing. On the Movies Under the Stars, that's great news. Are they looking for sponsors? Because in the past years, there have been corporate or community sponsors that help pay for the movies. Is that call out now too?
Madam Chair, it is out right now, and we do appreciate all of that support given in the past, so there will be an opportunity going forward. Okay,
thank you. Thanks, Art.
Anyone else? No? Okay, I'm sorry, Chief. Are you there now? Thanks. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I've been away for a week or so, I'm just going over the minutes from last week's meeting. The health unit has been watching the Ottawa situation very carefully. It has been spreading. It seems to be spreading in a smaller, younger group of individuals as opposed to originally when the pandemic started, it was usually in the elderly. Now they've got it down to a range of 29 to 39, seems to have the highest area for cases. Across Canada, they were talking 66% of the cases are in that range. So it's very concerning. We're certainly watching that because the concern is if it's that close in Ottawa, it's likely to start spreading this way. The health unit has been monitoring it and providing updates. Masks are on order for town staff. The health unit has put out the guidelines. They are now stating that the masks must be at least 2 layers of fabric to provide optimal protection. The single layers, although do provide some protection, certainly aren't recommended. They're asking for 2 layers. The return to work policy has been updated based on the review from other community policies to include daily screening, protocol in common areas, and enforcement. We've reviewed our personal protective clothing supplies. We seem to be in good shape except for the wipes. In discussion with the health unit, they're saying that the spray is more effective than using the wipes that nobody seems to have in stock or on hand or available. Council and committee meetings will remain virtual at this time. I know there has been discussions about having in-person meetings. But one of the concerns is all council meetings, as you're aware, must be open to the public, and trying to keep the numbers down and keep people separated and who can enter and who can't enter is a concern. So at this point in time, they'll remain virtual. As previously mentioned, the arena will be reopening with the user groups, and they'll be working with the health unit on that. The inflatable is not going to be put in at this time due to concerns from the health unit and the limited ability to enforce any of the protocols surrounding the pandemic concerns. The next item that was indicated on here is really through the mayor's task force. It's not through the emergency management group. It's a big spending program Saturday through the chamber to encourage support of small businesses. I'm sure the mayor will be able to comment on that later on. There's been lots of park use and certainly reduced vandalism, which is good. Either people are getting the messages or the enforcement's been there to discourage what was taking place before. And the last item on the information schedule is that it indicated that there was no details on municipal funding either from the province or from the federal government. Today's premier's release had indicated that there will be $4 billion released, 1.7 from the feds and the remaining from the province. And it's going to cover 5 areas. It's going to cover homeless shelters, women's shelters, food banks, public health, and transit. They're still working on the remaining billions of dollars and how they're going to be spread out and how it's going to be defined to each municipality. We're hopeful by the time this is all over and done, or certainly by the end of the year, that they will come out with a funding formula that allows each municipality to submit the expenses it's incurred, and hopefully that there will be funding available for that. That is the update for this evening.
Any questions or comments for the chief? Councilor McKenna? Thanks, Chief, and I appreciate that. I don't want to belabor the point of council getting back together face to face. It's more of a question. If we were to, say, meet in the upstairs arena, spaced ourselves out, and we continue to televise that, is that not considered public access to our meetings? Because that's what they have now, and they're public access. So I just wondered if that wouldn't meet that requirement. It would meet the requirements. Certainly having the public be able to access the upstairs, again, and keeping the physical distancing and or the wearing of masks would be acceptable. Again, the numbers would dictate exactly what's permitted to attend, including council and staff members that would be present. And typically, I'm not sure what the average has been over the last year or two with regards to public attendance. I guess it depends on the issue. But there would be limitations put on that given the space. And again, it would be a decision that would have to be made on who would be coming in and who wouldn't be coming in. I'm not so sure I'd want to be the person trying to enforce that. And again, public meetings are for the public. So I think we would be in a difficult situation, try to deny somebody access just because of the situation and based on the numbers that would be permitted in there. So if I may, I wasn't suggesting people come into the meeting other than council and staff. I was suggesting that through the current setup of broadcasting, that we would continue to, that would be the public access. So I understand, and I won't press it. It's just that I think we're all more effective sitting around the table, and I look forward to having the opportunity to get that back. And through the chair, no question, absolutely. One of the things that we would have taken in consideration there are a number of people that would not have access to live streaming or the video that would choose to maybe want to attend because it would be advertised as all other council meetings and agendas are. So there is the possibility you would have the public coming in. I just couldn't say what the numbers were or would be. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Brennan, you're next.
Yeah, thanks. A question, and I mean, we could talk about when we're going to meet in person on a later date, probably. But really, for me, and I could ask Director Costello maybe, what the uptake is on these feeds. I think is pretty good, and is probably a lot higher number than would attend a meeting normally. But my question would be, about committee meetings, because I'm on a couple of number of committees and in the service club, and we're talking about actually meeting in person. Not that they're public meetings, but it does help. I know that the limit in indoor spaces gatherings is 50. And with masks and social distancing, so that would be okay for committees.
Sorry, Madam Chair, is that to me or to?
I think he's asking it you. Yes.
Okay.
I asked you that, and then I'm just wondering about the uptake of the Facebook broadcasts we have.
And that would be permitted. The only question is the size of the area, again, will dictate so that you can maintain that. As I've realized that they have indicated that you can have up to 50 people, provided that all the protocols are in place and procedures are in place, and there's someone there to monitor and control that.
Yeah. I have a lot of reservations about meeting face to face, given the situation in Ottawa right now. And the fact that people are moving around, and it's not just Ottawa. People come from Ottawa to here, and we go there, and that sort of thing. So I think that it's a time right now to keep the pedal to the metal and keep doing what we're doing. I think these meetings actually are very effective, and
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Councillor McGuire's next.
Thanks, Director Costello. Did you have something you wanted to?
Oh, thank you, Councillor McGuire. I was just going to answer the question that Councillor Brennan brought up. We're averaging about 500 views, and that's all 3 platforms we're using, with the majority coming through on our Facebook live feed. Just to give you an idea of numbers.
Thank you for that. Councillor McGuire, did you have another comment or question?
Yes, please. Thanks, Madam Chair. I think Councillor McKenna brings up a great point. There is a lot missed in this environment, and I'm not sure that there's any greater or worse access to the public, whether we're behind 1 camera or 7 or 10. Could we get a legal opinion on what our obligations are, and what, whether we're in the same room, socially distanced on camera or separate, and whether that has a different obligation to the public of what kind of access they're entitled to?
Director Costello, do you have an opinion on that?
When this all started back in March, our legal opinion was received from many different solicitors across the province, all that indicated that allowing the public to watch on the public forum constitutes a public meeting. So what we're doing now, and like you're seeing across Ontario, the way we're conducting meetings is 100% legal, the way we're engaging the public right now. So that wouldn't change. That was brought up back in March when we decided to go with this platform, and the same with all of your committee meetings as well.
So we could have a public meeting around the Horseshoe, broadcast live at the town hall instead of remotely like this.
And not allowing the public to attend?
Well, they're attending online and through Cogeco.
I believe so, yes, Councillor McGuire. We can definitely double check, but the way it was worded to us back in March is that it would constitute a public meeting.
Okay, great. I think that would be advantageous, especially when a couple of weeks ago the storms were rolling through and power was cutting out. I know I lost my feed. If we at least had 4 people in the chambers, then if there's a planning file or something that really needs to go through to keep the crews working, it gives us that opportunity to be more resilient, I think. But.
So perhaps you could get back to us on that, Director Costello?
Absolutely. Many councils are going through the same process right now, so we do have a bit of a forum going on.
Okay, I have a few other questions. Just a minute. Councillor Alfred, did you have a question or comment? Can't hear you.
There is a great deal of communication lost because human beings, 80% of it's nonverbal. And I do think this is not as an effective way as it is when we're in person. I would raise another issue about going back into council chambers. It's very tight. It's very old. I don't think that I would be wondering what the ventilation was in there. And I'm not sure we can, maybe in the whole room, we could get 6 feet from each other, but certainly we can't do that with 7 of us at that horseshoe. So I would have some concerns about that, although I would like to get back to a more normal way of doing these meetings, but potentially we need to look at another venue besides the existing council chamber.
I agree. I think that the arena room sounded like a better option for us to do that, or at least to look into that. So we can leave that with Director Costello. You should get back to us.
Absolutely.
So the next report is from Economic Development. Jennifer Miller, please. Hi, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to bring a short update from the Small Business Advisory Center tonight. They've been working really hard to support our local businesses, and I just wanted to highlight 2 of their initiatives for you. So on Wednesday night, they're hosting an employment law webinar for our local employers. As Ontario phases into reopening the economy, it's really quite challenging, and this webinar will focus on COVID-19, work refusal, and staff fears. So this is a free webinar. It's led by Mann Lawyers. And if people are interested in attending, they can register on the Small Business Advisory Center website or on their Facebook page. It's been a very popular webinar for our local businesses, and there's been a request for one to happen at the end of business hours. So this is going to take place on Wednesday evening. But again, pre-registration is required. The center is also launching another Starter Company Plus program, with registration closing tomorrow afternoon. And this program provides employers who've been in business for less than 5 years with business plan training and coaching, plus the chance to be awarded a $5,000 grant for use within their business at the end of the program. And the program is free, but you do have to apply and spaces are limited. And then I just wanted to thank Council for taking part in the Big Spend on Saturday. This was a nationwide event that was promoted heavily by our local Chamber of Commerce. And I saw many of you out in our local stores and restaurants on Saturday. And with the challenges that our businesses are facing, shopping locals more important than ever. So thank you so much for your support.
Good. Any comments or questions? I thought it was a great day. I saw lots of people out and finding their way from one place to another. It was a nice day to spend money. Thank you for that. So next up is Director Costello.
Thank you. I just have one quick item for council tonight, and it's a quick update on the CIP program. As many of you know, a couple months ago, we passed a amendment to the program 2. And I'm just bringing forward an update for you, as was promised, for a bi-monthly update. There has been some interest in the program 2, the amendments to assist with COVID-related costs. At this point, there's been interest and there's been applications submitted, but there has been no funds released. So we will keep you abreast of that as the applications go through the process and are approved. We'll let you know what the monetary value is of those. So I just wanted to bring council up to date on that CIP item.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for council? Okay, thank you. There are no correspondence items this evening and no in-camera issues, so we will go right to our first priority issue, which is Hammer and Nails Development Zoning and Section 37 Density Bonus Approvals, 157 to 165 Beckwith Street North Report 2020-94 with Senior Planner Granke.
I'll be taking that one this evening, Madam Chair.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
So bear with me. Planning isn't my expertise by far, but I'll do my best. So last week, council approved the OPA, the official plan amendment, which is the enabling policy for this proposed development. Tonight, council is being asked to implement the zoning bylaw amendment and authorize execution of the bonusing agreement. The density bonusing, it means that we're granting additional density for the area in exchange for community amenities. In this case, affordable units, landscaping, parquet details, and design. So as council is aware, this is a 16-unit apartment building, which is in 3 combined lots, and it's being converted from an R6 residential to an R4 zone. With council's concurrence, there would be 2 separate bylaws being brought forward this evening, one for the zoning amendment and the second for the bonusing agreement.
Councillor Alford, did you have a question? Comment?
I did, Madam Chair. In the report, when it speaks about the 2 affordable units, Carrie, it didn't define the length of time that agreement would be in place. I know with the apartment building, I think Mr. Seymour committed to 20 years. And I don't think I saw the length of time those affordable units will be in the agreement with Hammers and Nails.
That is a great question, Councillor Alfred. I don't know off the top of my head, but I will find out for you.
Okay. Well, yeah, when we move to council, I don't think we have to have that in there in order to pass it, but I just want to make sure that there's a defined time that those 2 will be provided by the developer.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor McKenna, did you have your hand up? No, just stretching. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay. Moving on, priority issue B is update of County of Lanark, Canada Revenue Agency HST audit report with Treasurer Casillo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm here this evening to provide an update on the status of the County of Lanark's CRA audit that took place back in 2018. In April of 2019, Council were advised that the county had the audit and which concluded that they should have been charging HST on our shared services. The CRA's position was that HST applies at all times if there's not a specific exemption in place, hence it's a taxable supply. The county, as does the town, does not agree with the CRA's position, and their interpretation of the HST guide is that an exemption clearly does exist. To that end, as of June 26th of this year, the county filed a notice of objection. However, government legislation requires that they are to pay the assessed amounts while under appeal. The total HST owing was $821,000, and that covered the fiscal period of 2016 through to the end of 2019. The county agreed to defer the balance owing to them until we received our rebates from the CRA. This was processed in early April with our first quarterly submission, and we received our federal and provincial rebates in the amount of $710,000 mid-April, which in turn we reimbursed to the county along with our expense portion of $111,000. Anticipating that this might be the outcome until an appeal had been undertaken, this expense portion was set up as a 2019 payable. And going forward, the county is working on a new agreement, and it will be retroactive to the 1st of 2020. That clearly states that the county is acting as our agent, rendering this shared services arrangements HST exempt. Hence, there will be no budgetary impact for 2020. And with that, I'll pause and answer any questions you might have.
Councillor Alford?
No comments, maybe a compliment, Janet, to make sure that that was captured in the budget so that we didn't get a nasty surprise. So thank you for that.
Councillor McKenna?
Thank you, Treasurer Casillo. We've been following this file carefully because it serious implications for not just our agreement, but implications for many other municipalities across the country who have these arrangements. And I think when we discussed it at the county, there are only, the CRA seems to have narrowed in on this one and maybe one other in the country. And it's like they're testing it. So this is an important test. If I recall, the agreement we have with Lanark County is quite dated. And I wonder if I'm not saying you misspoke, but perhaps it says that the county is renewing the agreement. Shouldn't that be the town of Smith Falls and the county are renewing the agreement and reviewing it? And if so, do you have any thoughts, or could you consider looking at the entire agreement? I'm not suggesting we reopen it. It's a very good agreement, but it is very dated. Is there anything that we should clean up while we're going through this? And if you have any suggestions, or if council wants to look at that agreement, please, they should read it. If there's something, we are doing some tidying up of old agreements, and this one is rather dated. So if it is the town of Smith Falls working with the county on this, and not one way, then I'm supportive of that. And if there's anything else in that language that we need to tidy up, now would be a good time to do that.
Go ahead, Catherine.
So just to reiterate, yes, our agreements are dated and they're varied. There's some from as far back as 1990, one being the ambulance agreement in 2014. So they have sent a very preliminary draft from the county. So yes, that will be done in conjunction with the town, and it will consolidate them all into one. I can certainly send you the first draft, but unfortunately COVID's kind of taken over time and it's kind of been delayed. Obviously we'll want to get that into place before the end of the year because it's going to impact this year. If not, we would have to then in turn pay that HST this year's shared services. So we definitely want to get that in place before the end of the year.
Mayor Panko has a question as well.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
So I would appreciate a copy of that, Janet. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Panko.
Yeah, this is obviously irritation. I mean, it's nonsensical that the federal government would be charging HST on ambulance and ODSP and Leonard Lodge and social housing. It's really that's what's happening here as a service, and really because of the wording of an agreement. And it's not just the cost that we have absolutely hope to recover, and I think we expect to recover. It's the amount of staff time involved here. It's the work our auditor has had to do to carry the ball on this for us. And then we're grateful to the county for also being a good partner and helping to ensure that we do all we can to recover the $111,000 that we have to pay right now, or have paid, I guess, already. But it's almost inconceivable that this would be a position the government would take. But we're fortunate we have good people fighting on our side, and hopefully we have the right outcome here.
Okay, thank you for that, and stay there, please, because you're now up again for priority issue C, June budget monitoring, inclusive of COVID-19, upgrade on potential financial impacts report. Go ahead, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm here this evening to provide an update after June budget monitoring. As indicated in my report, we're now projecting about an overall deficit of 257,000, which is a decrease from May's report of about 67,000. Water and distribution deficit of about 75,000, wastewater deficit of 38, and tax support it's 143,000. The majority of the decrease to the overall deficit stems mostly from payroll expenditures, deferral of hiring of students. CDC, the emergency childcare, is being reimbursed by the province at 100%. So these interim reports are to provide provided to council to ensure accountability and adherence to our approved budget, and to update you on any potential financial impact due to the current pandemic. And I just want to elaborate on the chief's report. I did listen to, and the Ministry Clerk did indicate when asked by reporters sort of how this money would come forward and to the municipalities. And it sounded like it's going to be application-based partially, and then also based on households. So that, I mean, right now we have approximately 70,000 that's specific to the COVID expenditures, which is mostly PPE, but also loss of revenue. So I'm not certain how that'll all come down, if that's be on application based to try to recoup some of that money. But he did say probably in a few weeks' times, the program outline would be more defined. So I just wanted to give you a bit further on that. So if you had any questions.
Yeah, Councillor McKenna.
Thank you again, Treasurer Pazil. You had a really good list of unknowns where there might be some costing that we don't have a handle on just yet at the county and social services, et cetera. Public health is still, that may want to be included on that list. I know Minister Clark is working really hard, as is Minister Elliott, to make sure that the over expenditures that, as related to COVID, the public health is going through. But again, it's an unknown, and it's they had to rack up quite a bill to fight COVID. And I know if there is, by chance, if they aren't fully compensated, then the municipalities will have to find a way to do that. So I'm sure that won't be the case, but it could be on the list just to keep our eyes on that one as well.
Councillor McGuire? Councillor McGuire, did you have a question?
Yeah, Treasurer Koziel, did you want to respond to that?
I just wanted to kind of reiterate, I reached out to the county and because the things are happening fast and furious with COVID and funding, I have not got a response, and I'm sure they're not quite certain how to respond. So I think there's things being looked at that potentially they will get some funding for, Lanark Lodge being another one. And I think that's the difficult part, even with my reporting, is things are changing rapidly. And so it is difficult to put a firm figure to it. So.
Thank you for that. Councillor McGuire, did you have another question?
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. I'm wondering how many people have taken advantage of the payment deferral program to date? And well, yeah, that's the first question.
So just to respond to that, Madam Chair, I have been tracking each of the due dates. I'm not, and comparing it to where we stood last year. I'm not seeing any huge variances. For instance, February 28th due date was almost bang on to what was 2019. Now, mind you, that was before COVID hit. April 30th, in the same respect, was about 11% of the taxes were still outstanding after that due date. And in 2019, it was 10%. So it is slightly up, but not significantly. The due date in June, typically it's difficult to track those ones because the fact that some residents pay their entire taxes all in that first installment, as do mortgage companies. So when I look at that, it looks like 100% was covered for June, but part of that was probably August installment as well. So again, not seeing a lot of variance from last year to this year. I was going to kind of monitor August 31st due date and kind of let you know from there, but Councillor McGuire did reach out to me and ask me on the numbers. Nothing is showing me that there's much uptake for the need to continue with this, but that's certainly Council's decision.
Okay, thanks for the update. I think it definitely, since this is such an expensive relief thing to run for us, costing what, around $25,000 a month, maybe it's time to put something up on Speak Up Smith Falls and do some consultation to see if it's time to wind this program down as things open back up. Anyway, thank you, Treasurer.
Go ahead, Janet.
Just to reiterate, I know Councillor Brennan has often said he thought that was significant. A lot of those arrears it's not just on current tax arrears that we're waiving the penalty, it's all across the board. So you've got some significant taxes that are out there that are certainly not current. They're 2 and 3 years in. So that's where they're getting a relief from this as well. So just something to keep in mind.
Okay, seeing no other questions, thank you so much, Janet. You always do such an excellent job of updating us. Oh, sorry. Councillor Alford, did you have something?
Just a comment to follow up on what Councillor McGuire and Treasurer Koziel said. I think it's incumbent on us to recognize that our ratepayers have not accessed that service in any great numbers. And so I think there's a thanks due to them and some recognition for to our ratepayers because of that. That's pretty amazing that they have soldiered on in spite of COVID. And I think I think we should recognize and thank them for that.
Absolutely.
Well said. Thank you. Okay, our last, remember we took D off. Our last priority issue is with Councillor Dwyer, and she's going to talk about cameras at red lights. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. So yeah, I raised this issue following discussions that I had with a couple property owners in town, some neighbors, and it made me think about my experiences myself at one intersection in particular, and that is the intersection of Cornelia and Elmsley Street. and the potential for running red lights there. I'm not suggesting that red light cameras are the ultimate solution here, but what I would suggest that maybe we do is refer issues of traffic enforcement at that intersection to the Transportation Committee. I know during COVID, they probably have not been meeting, and I don't believe the committee meets regularly anyways, but I think it's probably something that merits some discussions at the committee. And if warranted, then perhaps the committee can recommend some solutions prior to undertaking the finalization of the 2021 budget. I know red light cameras in particular have come up in the past. The police, I believe, were not fans of them, and they gave a very detailed reason for why, which is why I'm thinking that perhaps if traffic or transportation committee is of the opinion that there is a need to do something there, then perhaps they can flesh out some examples of what proper enforcement. Oh, and I see Troy too, so Troy might want to weigh in on this as well. But certainly, I mean, as a user, particularly during commuter travel, I noticed tons and tons of people who blow through that light because they're just trying to get through rather than waiting their turn. So, I mean, there's no rush on this, but I would like the consensus of the committee to kind of make this a priority as time allows for the Transportation Committee to weigh in and evaluate.
Okay, Councillor Alford had her hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, and as Councillor Dwyer said, she's highlighting one intersection, and I would say the same if we were looking at that Abbott and Lombard, Ferrara and Lombard might be worse offenders than Elmsley and whatever the cross street is.
Cornelia.
So I think there are some other ones that might even be of more concern. And I'm just wondering what we're sending to the Transportation Committee then, is that just for this specific, just for that specific intersection that you're suggesting? Or I see Troy's hands up, so he's probably going to tell us something we need to know.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Through the chair, generally, I think we would want to get an understanding of you know, is there an increased number of collisions at certain intersections in town? Red light camera systems, and again, I know that's not necessarily the solution here, but those systems are generally targeted to correct an increase or a high number of right angle collisions. So I think we would want to understand from police services what their accident records are at certain key intersections, and then review that accordingly. We are speaking of the topic of enforcement, so we might need to engage the Police Services Board as well. I think maybe more so in this conversation to see where that leads, but I'm not sure how we define the issue at hand, I guess is the question.
Councillor Dwyer?
Thank you. Yeah, and frankly, Troy, that's why I kind of started with the police. I know the police have investigated this before, and I'm sure if Clerk Costello goes back and checks the minutes, there's reports and discussion about traffic calming, particularly on the use of red light cameras. I know for a while there was a debate about whether or not you could install like a dummy camera, which apparently is not legal. So I'm not saying that's necessarily the solution. My concern with going back to check accident reports, though, is that in my experience, the concern doesn't necessarily result in an accident, but rather a near miss. And that's something that I know there's always been a gap in record keeping, because how can you quantify a near miss when there's no tangible police record that comes from reporting it? So I'm not sure. I know I participated in an Ontario Professional Planning Institute workshop last year that talked about using smart technology. There's companies in Ottawa that have like 5G pylons, traffic pylons that they'll put out around an intersection, and they actually use heat cameras to sense near misses. I'm not necessarily saying that that's something that we should be doing, you know, as part of this, because no doubt the cost and price tag of that would be exorbitant. But I mean, there are options, and my fear with just relying strictly on the police record is that it's not going to accurately represent the potential danger caused at these intersections.
Councillor Brennan?
Thank you. I have no problem with us looking at this, and I'd add Beckwith and Chambers to that list. But you know, the other item that I've always talked about is the little square speeding counters. I mean, we have one that is mobile, but there's, you know, I see permanent ones all the time. And I was at AMO last year, the year before, and there's a company, I passed that along. So that's another thing to look at. And with the red light cameras, the other question is, you go through the red light, you're clicked on, and you get a ticket in the mail. Is that revenue for the town? I assume it is.
Director Dunlop, do you want to answer that? Go ahead.
Speak to, like, there's some excellent resource material at the City of Kingston right now. They're doing an extensive and quite long engagement with the population in Kingston about rolling out 10 red light camera sites in Kingston. The price on their program relates to an annual cost of $53,000 per site. Their target and their goal with their program is to reduce accidents and injuries at intersections where there happen to be, obviously, cars running lights, collisions are increased. So it's to really address those fatalities and injuries. That's their focus. And their goal through their program is to be revenue neutral if possible. So just want to identify what their experience is at present. And that's part of the communications they rolled out to their public thus far.
Okay, that's good to know. Thanks, Troy.
Councillor McKenna, did you have a comment or a question?
I'll just thank Councillor Dwyer for raising the issue of, you know, public safety and risk areas. And I think it's the start of a conversation. I know Director Dunlop has talked about doing our, we used to call it a traffic study of the whole, how everything works, our systems. But now I think we're talking about, there's a better word because it includes how people move about in our community, both cycling, walking. What's that study, Troy, that we're going to be doing?
Transportation.
Active transportation.
Active transportation. So I wonder if in that we take a look at where our risk, that would identify either, I'm mostly concerned with because people going through red lights, I'm worried about the pedestrian getting clipped. Absolutely. So I'm glad we're raising it and talking about it. I think it's part of a bigger discussion, not to wait till that, but I wonder, would that even be, could that be considered if once we did our active transportation study and we look at the recommendations, could red lights or how to, cameras at red lights or those kind of solutions come out of that? Is that a potential?
Director Dunlop, go ahead.
Through the chair, yeah, certainly in a transportation master plan, that is one of the key deliverables to analyze your accident history, see if there's certain areas in your network that have incidents that are well above the norm. There are actually targets when you look at intersections for signalization example that if there's a certain amount of accidents in the location, that may be a trigger as an example to initiate signalization. So we could review that. I would have to, I feel at the staff level, I would have to do some investigations to understand or how to quantify an issue of cars running red lights. We'd have to examine that. Certainly, again, the incidence of certain collisions could be a record or could caption where that could be an issue. But if that analysis by staff doesn't point us to certain intersections, we might need additional assistance to quantify that.
Councillor McKenna, go ahead.
I'm glad it's been raised, but I'm just, and we've heard anecdotal, and we could probably all, Councillor Alford talked about other intersections. So I'm trying to find some place to give this structure. And is it, if it's not the active transportation, rather than just go to the transportation committee and say, would you look at this? Well, what are the parameters? And, so it needs a little bit more structure, but I think we're onto something that I'm interested in, whether it's the transportation committee or the active transportation. I don't have the answer yet. Thank you.
Director Dunlop, what is your feeling on how we move forward with this? Is it the transportation committee?
From the staff,
are they meeting?
From the staff level, we want to quantify the problem before we analyze the solution. So I'm going to have to do additional work to determine how to quantify the problem. Accidents, again, would be a key indicator. If there are no accidents, I'm going to have to do a bit of research to see if there's other ways of remotely tracking or monitoring to see if there's red light runners, as an example. Mm-hmm. Might have to lean on other resources to find out what other tools are out there.
So could we have you come back with some more information at another time?
Sure, it may need a little bit of time on this one.
That's fine, yeah. I think, is that all right, Councillor Dwyer?
Absolutely. I mean, I just raised it to kind of get the ball rolling with the consensus of council. And if council appreciates the concern generally and the staff are committed to potentially finding a solution, then sounds good to me.
Good. Yes, go ahead.
If I could request council, I would like to get clear direction on locations, just so that we focus our efforts accordingly. So I am hearing Cornelia, Elmsley. If there's other locations, I'd like to hear that tonight.
I see hands up. Councillor Alford?
Yeah, I'm similar to Troy. Anecdotal evidence to start there, and I've seen it, we've all seen it. I see it all the time. I even did it once, I admit it. But I think probably we should start where Troy suggested, and that's with the accident statistics, because while I have seen it, you can't base decisions on anecdotal evidence going forward. So I would suggest that Troy start there and then see what happens after that. For each of us to shout out intersections is not helpful or productive. I was also going to comment on the fact that I would hope that my colleagues would agree that we might not see that till 2021, that information, because Troy has to get Beckwith Street finished.
Mm-hmm. Councillor McGuire, thank you for that. Councillor McGuire, did you have a comment?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I agree with Councillor Alford and Councillor Dwyer, but I think it's an anecdotal thing. It's hard to measure with accident statistics. I'm wondering if we could start with the 5 busiest intersections based on flow. And then that would I think the busier the intersection, the more likely this is to happen. And that might give us a better starting point.
Councillor Dwyer?
Yeah, my suggestion was similar to Councillor McGuire's. I was thinking, perhaps we start with our key arterial roads and then collector arterial intersections. I mean, there's really not that many of them in town, but Chris's suggestion about traffic volume might be an even better way to do it. And yeah, starting with 4 or 5 intersections as kind of a test project study area might be a good use of time.
Okay, Director Dunlop, is that okay with you? And I think I agree with Councillor Alford. I don't think that we're trying to put this at the top of our list right now. I know you have a lot of other things on your plate that are very critical at this time. Go ahead.
No, Madam Chair, I think I got clear direction. I'll certainly start with police and put a request in, and we'll look at, again, those 5 busiest intersections and see where the data leads us initially and go from there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, that ends our priority issues, and I need a motion for adjournment. With Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Alford, all in favor? Now 5 minutes is going to be enough.
Oh, probably 3 enough, I think.
The mayor is saying 3 minutes.
Short,
okay.
Short agenda. Good evening. Welcome to this regular meeting of Smith Falls Town Council for Monday, July 27th. I'll ask Council we will amend the agenda, removing item 7.2, which was regarding the Rideau Community Health Services Community Grant application. That was also deferred committee of the whole until a future date when we have more information. And also item 8.1, Marguerite Street request for drainage. A few members of council and myself met with members of that neighborhood this morning. They wanted to speak with us regarding their perspective on the drainage issues in that area, the safety issues. And we felt it's important that all members of council have the opportunity to interact with this Marguerite Street resident. So we will defer that item until a future date. I will ask for disclosure of monetary interest. I hear none. We have no delegations, no adoption of minutes. Reports this evening. I'll just go by show of hands if anyone has a report to share. No? Okay. I've got just two brief ones. As mentioned at COW, the Emergency Control Group continues to meet. We met last Thursday. The Mayor's Task Force for Economic Recovery met again last Friday. Nothing major to report out of that, but I think there's still a lot of concerns, especially from our hospitality sector, about what's going to happen this fall. And I guess a united effort to try to ensure we all prepare for what could be a difficult fall. But that group will continue to meet. We're skipping this week and meeting again next week, and we'll bring updates as needed. Bylaw, we have one bylaw this evening. It's with Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Alfred, that a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 608094 respecting the property municipally known as 157 165 Beckwith Street North be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Alfred. That a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 6080-94 respecting the property municipally known as 157 to 165 Beckwith Street North be received, read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? It's carried. Discussion, Councillor Brennan?
Yeah, this came up in our committee of the whole, and this property is going to provide, I believe, by memory,
16
units,
16 units.
Rental units that will be affordable housing that will be in place for 20 years. And so, it's great infill, and part of our priorities, our strategic priority is housing. So this is a good news story.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Can I have a third reading, please?
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Alfred, that a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 608094 respecting the property municipally known as 157 165 Beckwith Street North be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 101/67/2020.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Alford, the bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 6080-94 respecting the property municipally known as 157 to 165 Beckwith North be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10167-2020. All in favor? That's carried. On to bylaw 7.2, back to Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Alfred, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a bonusing agreement with Hammer and Nails Development Limited respecting 157 165 Beckwith Street North be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Alford, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a bonusing agreement with Hammer and Nails Development Limited respecting 157 to 165 Beckwith Street North be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Carried. Discussion, Councillor Brennan?
Yeah, this is a companion to the one I just read, and this is going to enable, I believe, amenities and community features for the area. And I want to compliment the planning committee and the local residents that gave input on this file. So again, it's going to be a fit into the neighborhood, and I think everyone's going to be happy with it. So,
thank you. Any further discussion? We have third reading, please.
thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Alfred, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a bonusing agreement with Hammer and Nails Development Limited respecting 157, 165 Beckwith Street North be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 101-68-2020.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Alfred, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a bonusing agreement with Hammer and Nails Development Limited respecting 157 to 165 Beckwith Street North be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10168-2020. All in favor? That's carried. Of course, item 7.2 and 8.1 were deferred. I'm going to move right to inquiries and announcements. Councillor McKenna.
I'm just inquiring. Monday is the civic holiday. Director Costello, will we be meeting on Tuesday, or do we have a sense of that yet?
Right now, I'm not sure. I don't think we have any agenda items, Councillor McKenna. I'm going to double check on that in the morning, and I will advise all of council and the media respectively.
Thank you.
Who's handling the trivia tonight? Councillor Brennan. Looking up at Councillor Alford on my screen.
The trivia has been deferred to me, but I think Councillor Alfred will appreciate this one. This is a woman in Smith Falls. She was the first woman to receive an officiating license from the world governing body for basketball, spent 15 years in international level, Canadian international level. And actually, during that time, she officiated gold medal games at the Pan Am Games, World Professional, International University Championships.
Wendy, you're up first.
Janice Deacon.
You are correct.
I do have some empathy for the younger members of council. We're gonna have to get something more recent.
I didn't have
Nikki
a lot
looked
of time.
bewildered.
Yeah, but I would also note that Janice was a dean until recently at Western University. So she sort of mentored me at Queens when I started at Queens. She phoned and said, "Do you need anything?" I'm like, "No." Who are you?
Here.
Yeah.
He said, did my mom make you call?
Yeah, probably. My mother made her call, yeah. Probably. Yeah.
Okay, well done. Who's next week? Wendy, you gonna pick up next week? Next
Yes,
council meeting?
I swear I'll be more prepared, Your Worship.
Okay. Motion
I'll
for
try to
adjournment.
find something
thank you.
reasonably in the 80s or 90s to do.
Okay, motion for adjournment, Councillor Alford.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brennan, that this council adjourn its proceedings at 6:09 and stand so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Alford, seconded by Councillor Brennan. This council adjourns proceedings at 6:09 p.m. and stands to adjourn to the next duly called meeting of council. All in favor? Quickest meeting
ever
since the pandemic started, right?